Discover the amazing 160-year journey of Sandvik, a heartwarming tale of unexpected innovation. Jake Sandvik stood in the shadow of his family's legacy, the weight of 160 years pressing down on his shoulders. The echoes of craftsmanship and tradition filled the workshop, but lately, they felt more like chains than a piano sonata. His father had always told him, "Innovation is our lifeblood, son," but the world outside was changing faster than he could grasp. The little town of Maplewood, Indiana, once vibrant with industry and community spirit, now felt fragile, like a house of cards ready to tumble at any moment. With his heart racing, Jake stared at the rows of tools that had been the pride of his family for generations. They were more than just metal and wood. They were stories, sweat, and dreams. Yet, with the economy spiraling, he felt a knot tighten in his chest. What future did they offer? Clara, his older sister, was an anchor firmly tied to tradition. Their discussions had turned into arguments, each introducing doubts and fractions of resentment that crept in like an unwelcome draft. "Jake, not everything needs to change." Clara's voice would pierce through the fabric of their memories, reminding him of the trust placed upon them. "Our family built this from the ground up. We can't throw that away." But throwing away tradition was not what he wanted. He just craved a bridge to the future, a way to balance both worlds. Over the past months, Jake had been poring over blueprints and innovative designs. The tools needed an upgrade, he was sure of it. After all, a lumberjack still needed tools to fell trees, but digital advancements could change the game. His vision, a new line of tools that honored their heritage yet welcomed innovation. As whispers of his plans spread through town, he couldn't ignore the flickers of hope stirring inside him. Could he do it? Could he breathe new life into Sandvik tools? He rallied a few locals for a town hall meeting, hoping to ignite the passion that once thrived in Maplewood, believing their support would solidify his dreams. The evening of the town hall arrived, and the energy was palpable. But, instead of unity, tension crackled in the air. Old-timers glared at newcomers, opinions clashed, and soon voices raised. The confrontation reached a boiling point, and panicking, Jake's heart pounded in his ears. "We need to preserve our ways," yelled one resident, his face a mask of indignation. "You think you can just swoop in with your fancy tools? Well, we built this town." Silence fell, except for his sister's incredulous gasp. "Jake, you're losing them." Clara didn't pull any punches, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and fury. "You're just another dreamer thinking you can change everything." And just like that, woven memories of laughter morphed into sharp pieces, the air thick with family divisions. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the meeting unraveled into chaos, Jake felt as if the ground below him was no longer solid. Could his vision save their family name, or had he lost his sister and their past forever? Alone in that echo chamber of memories and loss, he knew he had to make a decision between honoring the ties that bound them and the dreams that nagged at his soul. The Sandvik legacy might just hang in the balance. The air was thick with uncertainty as Jake stood before the crowd, their faces a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling with resentment and fear. He could almost hear the grinding gears of tradition clashing against the fresh ideas echoing in his mind. Did they really see him as a threat? With Clara's words hanging heavily in the air, he felt a tightness in his throat, and for the first time, a sense of doubt washed over him. "Look, I know I'm the new guy on the block," Jake began, his voice shaky but loud enough to garner attention. "But change isn't bad. It's about survival, about growth." He scanned the crowd, desperate for any sign of understanding. Clara crossed her arms, her expression hardening. The old-timers shifted uncomfortably, their gazes challenging, almost combative. A soft voice broke through the tension. coming from a woman he didn't recognize.
Jake, what do you propose?
She seemed genuinely curious, and he latched onto that flicker of hope, his heart racing again. Taking a deep breath, Jake explained his vision, the fusion of tradition with modern technology. He painted a picture of tools crafted not just by hand but with the assistance of smart technology, designed for efficiency while honoring the craftsmanship of their forefathers. Imagine if we could create tools that speak to the lumberjack, guiding them through the forest while still feeling like an old friend. He continued, excitement building in his words. Some faces brightened, others remained skeptical. Clara shot him a look that said, "This isn't going to win them over." But he had to try. A new line of tools could bring jobs back to Maplewood, he urged them. We can honor what came before while leading the way into the future. What's wrong with that? As he spoke, the townsfolk whispered amongst themselves. There were nods of agreement, punctuated by sharp retorts. Jobs? The kind that'll just disappear again when the next fad comes along? A burly man in the front row scoffed. The conversation shifted, tugging at Jake's heartstrings. They were terrified of losing the significance of their labor, the identity that came with tools passed down through generations. He could see the glimmers in their eyes. Some were starting to reconsider, but would it be enough to break the chains of tradition? I want to stop fighting for this town, Jake declared, fueled by a blend of hope and desperation. I want to honor the past, not erase it. But we can't ignore what's happening out there. Then, unexpectedly, Clara stepped forward. Sometimes, she started, her voice steady yet pained, you have to stand your ground to protect what matters most. I want to support you, Jake, but I can't stand by while you risk everything. It was a raw moment, one that cut deeper than any argument they had before as silence engulfed the crowd. Jake caught her gaze. In that instant, they both recognized the gulf that had widened between them. The weight of family loyalty clashed with personal dreams, and he wondered if, in his quest to save the legacy, he was sacrificing their bond. Clara, please, he began as he felt the walls of the room closing in around them. But a surge of voices cut him off. The room erupted more arguments, more conflict. It was an uncontrolled wave, and Jake felt that drowning sensation creeping back. They were spiraling away from a resolution, turning back to the scattered crowd. He knew he had to act. What if we hold a workshop? He shouted, surprising even himself. Let us come together. We can collaborate on creating something new, something that incorporates both traditions and innovations. Surprised glances turned into murmurs. Could this be the bridge he needed? The crowd buzzed, and Jake's heart raced anew. He felt the faintest flicker of possibility. But would the workshop be a light at the end of the tunnel or just another step toward deeper divisions? As hope and doubt wrestled within him, Jake wondered how much more he could endure to reconcile past and future without losing everything he held dear. What would the next meeting hold? And could he truly unite a town fractured by change? Feeling a swell of determination, he knew the next step would test his mettle like never before. The days crept by, heavy with anticipation. The workshop was set for Saturday, a day that felt both promising and terrifying to Jake. He spent every moment leading up to it mapping out the flow of the session, creating agendas and materials that balanced tradition and innovation. But still, doubt gnawed at him. Would anyone show up? Would they listen, or would they again see him as an outsider, an intruder on their cherished way of life? Saturday dawned bright and warm, the sun spilling its golden light over Maplewood as if urging the townspeople out of their homes. Jake arrived early, his heart pounding in rhythm with the hum of the cicadas. He set up in the old community hall, the wooden beams overhead whispering secrets of generations past. There was something sacred about this place, and Jake felt the weight of history on his shoulders as he arranged chairs and tables. One by one, familiar faces trickled in. Clara was among the first. She walked in with a hesitant smile, arms still crossed, but her eyes seemed softer. I want to see how this goes, she admitted quietly, taking a seat at the front. Jake felt a rush of relief at the small gesture, a flicker of hope. More townsfolk filled the room, some chatting with friends, others lingering by the door with uncertainty shadowing their expressions. Jake took a deep breath, readying himself for the challenge ahead. As the time for the workshop began, he stepped to the front, his palms clammy but his resolve firm. "Welcome everyone," he started, his voice steadying as he spoke. "Today, we're here to explore some ideas, to bridge our hard-earned heritage with new innovations. This isn't about erasing what we love. It's about enhancing it." He could see the town's elders leaning in a bit closer, some of their lips tight as they fought against a smile. It was a start. Jake kicked off the session by sharing stories from his own family, how his grandfather had used tools that his great-grandfather had crafted. To his surprise, he saw nods of recognition around the room. Memories were sparked, unraveling the tightly wound fears. He then introduced his concepts, inviting participants to brainstorm with him. "Think about what challenges you face daily," he prompted. "What if we could design something to help make that work easier?" In an unexpected twist, a burly man from the front row, a man Jake had feared most, raised his hand. "Like the tools my father used to make? I remember how they felt in my hands." His voice softened, the weight of nostalgia palpable in the air. From there, conversations flowed. Ideas bounced from person to person, each thought layering on the next. Members of the crowd began to share their stories of pride and loss, tales that brought both laughter and tears. Jake couldn't believe it. They were connecting, not just with him but with each other. The walls of division began to crumble, brick by brick, and unity emerged from their shared heritage. But just as things started to feel electric, Clara stood up. "I want to support this," she said, the emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. "But Jake, what if it fails? What if these new ideas hurt our community more than they help?" Silence fell, her question echoing in the heart of the room. Jake felt it like a punch in the gut. With each echo, uncertainty wrapped around him again, threatening to pull him under. "Maybe we just have to try," he responded, searching for courage in the uncertainty that had once paralyzed him. "Together, we can guide this process." The murmurs of the crowd shifted, some clearly wavering, others fully on board. It was clear. They wanted to be part of something bigger, just as he did. Yet, as energy filled the room, Jake could feel the stakes rising. Would this workshop be the turning point he hoped for? Or were they all just grasping at something that might slip away too soon? The tension spun tighter as Clara's gaze locked with his, both filled with questions. He realized then how intertwined their destinies had become in this shared effort. What would happen next? Would the townsfolk find the balance they sought, or would the chasm of doubt widen again? Jake felt the pull of uncertainty deepen his resolve. There was no backing down now. Jake's heart raced as he stood before the crowd, the air thick with a mix of hope and anxiety. The weight of Clara's question hung heavily between them, daring him to respond with wisdom. He searched the faces of the townsfolk, each one a canvas of emotions: curiosity, skepticism, and a flicker of excitement. "Let us go one step at a time," he said, his voice growing stronger. "We can test these ideas, modify them, adjust. This is about creating a dialogue, not dictating solutions." He could see Clara visibly relax, even if just a little. The murmurings shifted to a buzzing warmth. A woman with silver hair and a gentle smile raised her hand. "What do you suggest we test first?" she asked. Her straightforwardness surprised Jake, and he felt gratitude swell within him. Here was a glimmer of support, a beacon that could guide the rest. "Let us start with something basic," Jake replied, his mind racing. "Perhaps a tool for our community garden? I hear you've faced challenges there, right?" Heads nodded vigorously, and voices began to rise in excited chatter. "I think we could use a better watering system," chimed in a young man near the back. "It gets a bit chaotic during summer. I'd like to make it easier for everyone," the elderly woman added. "We want to keep that garden thriving and beautiful." As they brainstormed, Jake felt the camaraderie swell around him. Every idea sparked another, laughter punctuating the exchanges, shadows of doubt dissolving with every shared thought. He moved around the room, engaging directly with individuals, taking notes of each suggestion. Then it happened, the breakthrough moment. An idea emerged about a hybrid tool, one that combined traditional handcrafting with modern design. It was a simple concept inspired by heartfelt nostalgia, a way for each person to contribute their touch to something that would serve the community. The air hummed with exhilaration, and Jake could see Clara's eyes widen, reflecting the newfound excitement rippling through the crowd. But amid the energy and collaboration, a growing pit in his stomach didn't let him rest. What if their ideas were just a bandage over a deeper wound? What if failure did come as Clara had feared? He hesitated, feeling the weight of their shared expectations. Okay, he finally interjected, raising a hand to gather attention. We're all excited, and that's great, but let us be honest. Some things may not work the way we hope. The room quieted, the reality sinking in. Jake met Clara's eyes again. This journey won't be perfect. There'll be bumps along the road, and we'll have to face them together. He saw some heads nod, understanding dawning in their eyes. Building something new came with risks, and Jake was finally ready to embrace the unknown. When the workshop concluded, the townsfolk lingered. Jake overheard snippets of conversations, swift exchanges of excitement, promises to collaborate, hints of possibility. Each moment felt like magic, but as he fielded their questions, Clara stepped closer. Jake, I see the change here, she said softly, her arms slowly unfolding. But I still worry if something goes wrong. How do we bring the community back together? He felt her vulnerability, and Jake realized how much he wanted to reassure her. We'll build a safety net together. Trust is key. But in the pit of his stomach, doubt lingered. Was it truly enough? The sun began to set beyond the windows, casting a warm golden hue over the group as they worked. Jake stood there, infused with renewed purpose, although still grappling with the question that hung in the air. Would their resolve last? Would the town hang onto that thread of hope he desperately wanted for them? As laughter echoed and the evening wound down, a thought burned brightly. Could they truly forge a path together, balancing the weight of their history with the promise of innovation? Only time would tell. Jake felt a shiver of anticipation grip him tight. What would tomorrow bring? The morning sun stretched its fingers across the quiet town, bathing everything in a soft golden light. Jake woke to the sound of birds chirping outside his window, their songs weaving threads of optimism into the quiet of his thoughts. Today felt different, brighter somehow. He pulled himself out of bed, still riding the high of the energy from last night's workshop. As he made his way downstairs, the smell of coffee brewing wafted through the air, putting an eager bounce in his step. Clara was already sitting at the kitchen table, her brow furrowed in concentration as she reviewed her notes from the meeting. Good morning, Jake greeted, pouring himself a cup. Did you sleep well? Clara looked up, a smile breaking through her serious demeanor. I did, surprisingly. I think the idea of the community garden got me excited. Jake leaned against the counter, cradling the warm mug in his hands. Me too. I can't help but feel like we're on the verge of something special. But as he said it, that nagging uncertainty crept back in. What if the community wasn't ready for the kind of change they were proposing? Clara must have sensed his unease. What's on your mind? Just thinking about how easy it is for people to get distracted, especially if things don't go according to plan. Clara's eyes softened. You mean if they fail? Her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah. It's one thing to get everyone excited in a room. It's another when it comes time to actually build something. The words rushed out as he paced the kitchen. Jake, she said, her tone more serious now, you're underestimating the power of this community. They've weathered storms before. Your idea isn't just about the tools. It's about bringing people back together, rekindling a sense of belonging. Her words sank in deeper than Jake expected. He took a moment to let the wisdom of her perspective settle in. Could he let go of his fears and lean into the possibility that Clara saw? Just as they were wrapping up breakfast, a knock echoed through their home. Clara went to the door, and Jake followed behind her, still wrestling with his thoughts. As Clara opened the door, a small group of neighbors stood on the porch, their faces alive with energy. Morning, one of them greeted enthusiastically. We're so pumped about the garden. We brought some ideas. Jake's heart lifted. Here it was the very energy he had hoped for. He couldn't help but smile, excitement bubbling up inside him. As the conversation flowed, Jake felt a surge of community spirit, as if all the doubts he held were dissipating in the light of their enthusiasm. They tossed ideas back and forth, plans for the garden transforming into visions of communal gatherings, workshops, and even barbecue days. Every suggestion seemed to spark another, and laughter peppered their exchanges. But, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, an unexpected reality hit Jake, a message that couldn't be ignored. Clara pulled him aside gently, her expression serious. "There's something we should discuss," she whispered, a slight tremor in her voice. "I heard some rumors about our proposal. Not everyone in town is supportive." Jake's stomach dropped. The joyful atmosphere around them dulled at the weight of her words. "What do you mean?" "Some are worried this will spark division again. They fear change." His heart raced, the air around them suddenly feeling stifling. Could this dream of hope and connection unravel before it even began? Jake swallowed hard, feeling the uncertainty grip him once again. Just when they thought they were moving forward, were they really just opening the door to deeper conflict? With a determined resolve, he turned back to the group. "We'll address it head-on," he said, surprising even himself. "Let us bring everyone in, no matter how uncomfortable the conversation might be." Jake took a deep breath, knowing that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But what choice did he have if they wanted to forge ahead together? Stay strong, stay together. He glanced at Clara, who met his gaze with fierce determination. They both knew it. Wasn't he going to be easy? But wasn't he that the way worth taking? As he led the conversation forward, Jake couldn't shake the thought. How much change could truly happen if they faced their fears together? And deep inside, a voice whispered, what if this was only the beginning? Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he turned back to the group. The lively chatter faded into a low hum, and he could sense every pair of eyes on him, waiting. "All right, everyone," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "I know some concerns have been raised about the garden. I want to address them." A few heads nodded, and Clara stepped closer, her reassuring presence grounding him. "We're looking to create something beautiful, a space for all of us. But I understand that change can be scary." One neighbor, Sandra, crossed her arms and leaned in. "It's not that we don't like the idea. It's just, what if things don't stay peaceful? We've seen this turn ugly before." Her words struck a chord, echoing Jake's own doubts. "I hear you, Sandra. But imagine if we could come together, rebuild those bonds. Isn't that worth the risk?" There was a moment of silence, penetrating and heavy. Jake searched the faces in front of him, looking for a spark of understanding. "Jake," said another neighbor, Tom, "what if this fails? What if people just don't show up or participate? We could end up with just a plot of dirt instead of a garden." The weight of that question lingered like a dark cloud. Yet, beneath that doubt, Jake found a flicker of hope. Every great journey starts with uncertainty. I didn't expect to convince everyone right away. But if we never try, how do we know what's possible? What if people show up? What if they find joy in working side by side? He scanned the group again. Some were nodding, others still cautious. Clara squeezed his hand, encouraging him to keep going. "Let us host a gathering, an open discussion. Invite everyone, whether they're for it or against it. Let us hear each other out. We can't build this garden without building trust first." A murmur of agreement rippled through the neighbors. "That's actually a good idea," Clara added, her enthusiasm infectious. "This is about connection, right? Not just growing plants, but growing our community." Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. They were still standing at the edge of a cliff, but maybe, just maybe, they could leap together. "Okay, so how about we plan a meeting for this weekend?" Jake proposed. "We can provide snacks, maybe even a little music. Make it a chance to connect." Slowly but surely, heads began to bob. As the energy shifted back into excitement, Clara beamed at him, her eyes sparkling with pride and encouragement. Just then, a voice piped up from the back. It was little Lily, the neighborhood girl who always seemed to bring laughter. Can we plant flowers? I love flowers. Laughter fluttered through the crowd, and it felt like the ice was cracking. Jake chuckled. Flowers it is. Who doesn't love a splash of color? As they continued to brainstorm, hope began to rise again, knitting a sense of community. Yet, just as he felt things settling into a rhythm, Jake saw Clara's expression shift, her smile fading. Jake, I need to talk to you later. It's important, she said quietly, pulling him aside again. His heart sank slightly. What now? Hadn't they just begun to turn this around? What was left to discuss that could dim the brightness of their gathering? Is everything okay? He asked, trying to keep the worry from his voice. She glanced around, ensuring the others were engaged in their discussions, then focused on him. I heard there's going to be a meeting among those who oppose us. Discussions about blocking the garden proposal altogether. A chill raced through him. All the energy they built, the connections they were forging, it was all about to be tested in ways he hadn't imagined. Then we'll have to be ready, Jake said, resolve stealing in his chest again. We can't let fear win. Let us prepare to present our case. Clara nodded, her determination matching his. As the evening wore on, a glimmer of what was to come loomed larger. The road ahead was fraught with tension, but they wouldn't retreat. They needed to face what lay ahead. But as Jake looked around at the laughter and the energy of the gathering, a question lingered in his mind. Could they truly unite? Against the shadows of doubt? Or would the past pull them into darkness once more? The sun dipped low as the gathering began to wrap up, casting a warm glow over the faces of the neighbors. But Jake's thoughts were far from the light-hearted banter around him. They were consumed by Clara's news. He glanced at her across the lawn, amidst the laughter and chatter, and saw the intensity in her eyes. They needed a strategy, and quickly. Hey, wanna walk home together? Clara suggested, her voice light, though the range of emotions played behind her eyes. Yeah, let us go. They set off down the familiar path, and the rhythmic crunch of gravel underfoot was just loud enough to drown out their silent worries. Do you think it's going to be a big meeting? Jake asked cautiously, glancing sideways at her. I don't know, but I heard some strong voices are involved. The kind that could rally people against us, she admitted, her brow furrowed slightly. Jake felt a pang of helplessness. This garden was more than just a patch of land to him. It was a symbol of hope and unity. We need to be prepared. If they're meeting to strategize, then we should gather our supporters and brainstorm what to say. Agreed, Clara replied, determination setting her shoulders straighter. We can't fight just with passion. We need facts, we need a vision that pulls people in. They walked in silence for a few moments, the weight of the looming conflict settling in around them like a dense fog. Maybe we could hold a small meeting of our own, Jake suggested, an idea sparking in his mind. We can meet at my place. Gather everyone who is interested. We can share ideas, rehearse, make sure we're ready. If we can show our vision, it might just help them see things differently. Clara stored that thought, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Yes, and we can invite Lily too. She seems to be a favorite among the neighborhood kids. Maybe she can rally some support. Good idea. The more voices we have, the stronger our case. We need everyone pulling in the same direction, Jake said, feeling a rush of adrenaline as they neared Jake's house. The sky burned with oranges and purples, a contrast to the urgency pulsing through him. Would they be able to rally enough support before it was too late? Later that evening, they set up chairs in Jake's backyard, the leaves whispering softly in the breeze. One by one, their supporters trickled in, each bringing snacks and enthusiasm. With each smile and friendly greeting, Jake felt the weight lift a little. Okay, everyone, thank you for coming, he began, his voice carrying over the low hum of conversation. We have a lot to discuss, and time is ticking. Clara and I believe our garden proposal could foster a sense of community, but we're facing some significant pushback. He felt the energy shift as concerned faces nodded, and several voices chimed in to express their support. What can we do to help? One neighbor called out. Jake exhaled. They were with him, Together we can craft a strong statement of our vision. We need to share what this garden means to us, not just as a plot of land, but a place of belonging. As the evening unfolded, ideas flashed and passions ignited. They exchanged stories, each sharing personal connections to the community and what the garden would mean for them. But just as they began to solidify their plans, Clara's phone buzzed insistently. She picked it up, her face draining of color as she read the message. "That was my neighbor. They want to meet tomorrow morning," she whispered, her hand trembling slightly. The room fell silent, tension hanging heavy again. Was time running out? Jake's heart raced as he watched Clara process the news. "We'll be ready," he said quietly, firming his resolve. As the meeting wrapped up, Jake felt uncertain yet hopeful. They had made strides tonight, but would it be enough? The looming challenge ahead felt like a wall they had to scale, tall and daunting. How would they respond to the opposition? Could they push through, or would doubt seep into the roots they were trying to plant? The morning light spilled into Jake's room like a splash of optimism, yet anxiety gripped his chest. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall, thoughts racing. Tomorrow morning felt too soon. The notion that their neighbors were gathering to discuss how to block their dream weighed heavily on him. In the kitchen, the smell of coffee was strong, the aroma a stark contrast to the knot in Jake's stomach. Clara was already there, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her mug as she stared out the window. The sun shone brightly, but for them, the day felt ominous. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked, trying to muster a sense of confidence in his voice. Clara turned slowly, a slight smile spreading across her face that didn't quite reach her eyes. "As ready as we can be. We'll do our best." With that, they packed their bags with the documents they spent the night compiling statistics, testimonials from neighbors, and plans for the garden's layout. Each piece of paper felt like a lifeline, grounding them as they prepared for what lay ahead. When they arrived at Clara's neighbor's house, it was evident that the air was thick with tension. A small group had gathered outside, their expressions revealing their apprehension. Clara took Jake's hand, squeezing it tightly. They exchanged a glance filled with shared resolve. Together, they would make their voices heard. Inside, the mood shifted, growing heavier with each passing moment. Jake noticed the opposing group, led by Clara's neighbor Tom, who stood at the front of the crowded room with arms crossed, exuding an air of authority. His frown deepened as he caught sight of Clara and Jake taking their seats. "Thank you all for coming," Tom began, his tone flat. "We need to discuss the garden proposal initiated by Clara and Jake. A lot is at stake here." Jake could feel Clara tense beside him. This was it. He hadn't anticipated how intimidating it would feel to face even a small gathering of concerned neighbors. Clara took a deep breath and leaned slightly towards him, her eyes bright with determination. "They think we're just trying to take away from the community." Clara spoke up, her voice steady despite the flutter in her heart. "But we believe the garden can be a unifying space. It's not about taking. It's about enriching." Murmurs filled the room, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Clara pressed on, sharing stories of how gardens had transformed other neighborhoods and reinforced communities. She spoke of kids playing together, families gathering, and people finding common ground. But Tom interrupted, his tone rising sharply. "And what about the noise during events? Who cleans up after you? This is a serious commitment. We can't afford to lose our park space." Jake's pulse quickened, sensing the tide shifting. He cleared his throat, feeling a surge of adrenaline. This isn't merely about maintaining the status quo. It's about creating new opportunities. We can organize cleanup days. We can set rules that ensure the community thrives. We'll work together. Perhaps it was the passion in his voice, or maybe it was the unity he saw forming among their supporters, but a shift in the energy began to ripple through the room. Neighbors were starting to speak up, voicing their support, offering their own ideas. Yet, amid the excitement brewing, Jake felt a rising anxiety. Was this enough? Would they be able to change minds, sway hearts? As the meeting continued, moments of hope flickered in the glances they shared. But in the back of his mind, a nagging fear lingered. What if they still lost? The discussion raged on, each opinion a gust of wind that could either lift them or push them back down. But beneath the tangible tension, Jake felt something fragile yet powerful: unity. Perhaps. Just as he felt a glimpse of victory, Clara's phone buzzed again, this time with a more urgent tone. She glanced at the screen, her eyes widening. "Jake," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this." What had she found? Jake could only hope it was good news, but in his gut, he feared it might shake everything they had just built. Clara's grip tightened on her phone as she read whatever message had just come through. Jake leaned closer, curiosity tinged with dread. "What is it?" he asked, the question slipping from his lips before he could think it through. "It's a news article," she replied, her brow furrowing in concern. "About Tom. He's been in trouble before with the neighborhood association." Jake's heart raced. "What do you mean?" Clara's voice was barely above a whisper, as if she feared the words would echo too loudly in their tense surroundings. "It says he's had complaints about his yard, his dogs barking all the time, and he's been cited for violating community rules." It was a small crack in the facade, but Jake felt the shift in weight on the scales of their fate. If they could use this information but then doubt clawed at him. Should they? Would it backfire? Before he could voice his thoughts, Clara's face paled, and she continued reading. "There's more, Jake. It mentions he tried to block another community project a few years ago, and then there were accusations of bullying. People were scared to speak up against him." The whispers around the room began to transform as their immediate group absorbed the news. Clara turned to him, a glimmer of hope mixing with her worry. "If we bring this up, it could change everything. Would that be wrong?" The question hung between them. Jake weighed the potential impact. On one hand, exposing Tom's past could sway opinions and ensure their voices were heard. On the other hand, they both knew how easily it could provoke retaliation. Clara's eyes searched his, looking for reassurance. "Maybe we shouldn't use it as a weapon," he finally said, trying to ground himself in a more ethical stance. "But what if we ask the neighbors how they feel about it? If they're aware of who they're siding with?" Clara nodded slowly, processing his words. "You're right. We don't want to stoop to his level. But if the truth comes out, that might still help change minds." As the discussion continued around them, Jake felt a surge of uncertainty. Their supporters were speaking up, rallying behind the idea of the garden, highlighting its potential to foster community spirit. "Let us just keep it in our back pocket for now," Jake suggested cautiously, though part of him was already slick with anxiety. "If it looks like we're losing ground, maybe we can revisit it." Minutes turned into what felt like hours as the atmosphere shifted unpredictably. Support built, then faltered depending on Tom's skilled deflections. But Clara and Jake stayed vigilant, feeding off each other's resilience. "Those are great points," one neighbor said, excitement building in their voice. "But what about the budget? Who's funding this project?" "That's what we've been trying to clarify," Jake interjected confidently. "We've got plans for grants and community support. The funding isn't just dependent on us." Yet doubts lingered in the air, along with voices trying to weigh the theories of promises against past assurances. Amid the noise, Clara leaned into Jake, her breath mixing with the adrenaline coursing through him. And then, just as Jake thought they might gain an advantage, he caught Tom's gaze. A flicker of determination ignited in Tom's darkening eyes, and in that moment, Jake knew they were far from finished. Suddenly, Clara's phone buzzed again, now a repetitive alert that jolted them from their thoughts. Every eye in the room turned toward her, the atmosphere shifting like a live wire. Jake's heart sank. This had to be more than just a distraction. "What now?" he whispered, but Clara's gaze was fixed on the screen. Her eyes narrowed. "It's a video clip of the garden from last summer's neighborhood festival." Jake felt a sense of urgency flare within him. The festival had brought everyone together. Could it remind them what was truly at stake? "What did we miss?" Jake pressed. The room had quieted, all eyes glued to Clara, anticipation thickening the air. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, the muted video began playing, the image of laughter and joy echoing through the once quiet streets. What they saw next would change everything. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly the room filled with the sounds of laughter and cheers from last summer's festival. Faces illuminated with joy flashed before them, children running in playful abandon, neighbors engaged in friendly banter. It was a time when community wasn't just a word, it was a feeling. Jake watched the moment unfold, heart racing as he felt the connection weave through every pair of eyes present in the room, tugging at a shared nostalgia. "Remember this?" Clara whispered, her voice filled with urgency. "This is who we are." The video continued, showing neighbors lending hands to set up booths and sharing food, painting a picture of unity that had once cradled Maplewood. Jake's heart swelled with hope. If they could just tap into that spirit again. Suddenly, the video paused, showcasing a group underneath the town's iconic oak tree dancing together, the sunlight filtering through leaves casting dappled shadows on their happy faces. It was pure joy, and for those few stolen moments, every doubt seemed to fade away. "Look at them," Jake urged, rising slightly from his seat. "This isn't just about tools or gardens. This is about the heart of our community." Clara nodded, her face lighting up with newfound energy. "We're not trying to take anything away from anyone. We want to bring this back." The corners of Thomas' mouth tightened, and some in the room exchanged wary glances. But seeing that video had fueled an undeniable spark. The familiar laughter echoed, awakening memories that were too precious to discard. "Tom," Jake said, locking eyes with him, "would you really want to stand in the way of something that could bring this joy back? This is what a community looks like." Tom's expression faltered, uncertainty creeping in as murmurs rose among the townsfolk. The tension was palpable. It felt like the weight of their collective history rested on the pivot of this very moment. Clara took a step forward, emboldened. "We can all be part of this solution. We can restore that feeling. Let us work together." Jake felt the momentum shift as new hands raised in eagerness. The memories became a bridge, a reminder that they were not just individuals with their own stakes but a shared tapestry woven through a history of collective joy and connection. One neighbor piped up, "I remember the excitement of planting together as kids. We believed we could make a difference." The energy in the room surged, a collective heartbeat thumping with life as they shared stories. As faces began to brighten, Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of possibility descend gently upon them. Tom stood there, his arms uncrossing slightly, as he seemed to grapple with the inevitability of what was unfolding. The doubts in their proposal were being washed away with the tide of community memories and strength. "What if we compromise?" Tom finally spoke, tension still lining his features. "There has to be a way to make this work for all of us." Jake's heartbeat quickened. Was it happening? Absolutely. "We can establish guidelines, set communal days for events, and ensure everyone has a voice. Let us create this garden together." The room erupted in a tidal wave of support. Laughter filled the air again as neighbors exchanged thoughts, and for the first time, a glimmer of hope encased their meeting in warmth. "Let us make it a community event. A planting day," Jake heard someone shout. "Let us talk about the garden festival for next year, too." Another chimed in as voices grew louder with enthusiasm. Jake noticed Clara's tears of joy as they flowed freely down her cheeks. She stood close, pride radiating from her. Every tension melted away, one powerful connection at a time. "Together, we can grow something beautiful," Jake said, feeling renewed strength surge through him. And as the neighbors rallied, the warmth of connection enveloped everyone in that room as they crafted a vision for their community, a patch of earth that would serve as nourishment for their shared legacy. Outside, the sun shone boldly upon Maplewood, as if beckoning them into a new dawn. At that very moment, Jake knew the Sandvik legacy would carry forward transformed, united, and more resilient than ever. But now, as we wrap up this heartwarming tale of innovation and community, here's what you need to do. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support for what we can create together.